they've taken away my bubble gun, probably for the best. Now, new analysis this week by the BBC's File on 4 reveals the scale of civil injunctions in force in places like oil terminals, petrol stations, racetracks and travel networks across England and Wales to protect these sites from environmental protesters. Now, more than 400 demonstrators are named in court orders that restrict protests at more than 1,200 locations. The civil injunctions also apply to persons unknown, meaning anyone could be prosecuted. The anti-protest injunctions limit what people can do, who they can associate with and where they can go. Now, the oil companies and public bodies argue that the measures are necessary to prevent disruptive and dangerous protests, while campaign groups argue that it infringes on their rights. Now, the story does bring to light an issue that's ongoing as environmental protest methods continue to divide opinion. So today we are asking, are eco-protest rules too strict? And joining me to discuss this are Clare Farrell, co-founder of Extinction Rebellion, and journalist and commentator Inaya Folarin Iman. Good morning to both of you.
Morning.
Clare, I'm going to start with you. And I think it is important to say, look, the public does have a democratic right to protest. But when we see these scenes all across social media, across the news, of people disrupting other people's lives, when does it go too far? Is there a line that can be crossed?
Well, there's a line that's being crossed right now, and that's called 1.5 degrees of global warming, which is what we said we would not go beyond.
Which is the message that you're trying to get across, obviously.
Yeah, we're on course for civilisational collapse. OK, it's really important that you understand that your viewers understand that. People causing a fuss in these ways that we have been doing over the last sort of 5 or 6 years, the debate has been massively shifted onto our tactics. What's going to work? How will they do it? It's not a soap opera. It's not a drama. We're dealing with the collapse of the world that we need to rely on to live. And so the thing I want people to understand is that rather than asking what the tactics are, we should be asking, why are we being ignored? So when it's the end of, you know, when it's the collapse of our food systems, the breakdown of law and order.
We should be having that conversation. Yeah. Of course, Claire, that's the conversation we should be having. So I suppose then that's the problem, that you are some people would argue that it's distracting from that message. But then, and I see your point, and I want to raise that with you, that there is only a way to get this across to people. Is there, you know, one way to do that is to get the attention of people? How else do you get us here sat now talking about the issue?
Well, what we've just heard is literally confirming the point that actually, rather than talking about the environmental challenges, the trade-offs when it comes to tackling climate change, actually what these protests do is distract from that discussion. And actually what they do is sow resentment and bitterness within the public, where they actually just don't want to talk about these issues whatsoever. Because when you're having your lives disrupted, when you're going to an art gallery to just have a bit of relief from the day-to-day stresses of life, you'll have protesters throwing paint and destroying it. You want to watch a football game, you want to watch a poker game or any of these types of things, or even just driving to work. You have protesters that think it's their right to glue themselves to the ground and cause traffic for 2-3 hours. Of course we have the right to protest, but that doesn't mean that you have an unchallenged right to disrupt everyday life for ordinary people.
Does it, Claire? Does that mean that do you feel that sense that you should have an unchallenged right to do whatever it takes?
Well, what would you do if you thought that, you know, the entire of organised, civilised life on Earth was gonna break down? What would you do? I mean, the thing is, most people just don't believe, actually, the severity of what's taking place. And, you know, the soup throwers are not your enemy. Your enemy is the fossil fuel industry, who have systemically lied to the public for generations to make people unsure about what's happening. They knew exactly that what we see now, the increased extreme weather, the hurricanes in the Caribbean just now, these things have been predicted by the fossil fuel industry.
If people don't believe it,
that's
a failure of environmental protests to actually make their argument in a way that resonates and convinces with people.
Very little.
Hold on, can I just finish that point? Because if you think that people don't believe you and people are not signing up to your arguments, that's the failure of your arguments. It's not the fact that actually we're the problem and therefore we need to be protested and have our lives disrupted until we see the world through your specific lens.
How do you feel about that? Because obviously you can see the reaction, you can see what's in the press, you know, how you deal with the negative press around
Yeah, but as activists, people who are very low-resource actors in a system against companies who have hundreds of billions of pounds, you know, I can't I can't do anything personally, as one person, that will counteract £80 billion put into fossil fuels, or hundreds of thousands of pounds spent on private injunctions, which amount to, by the way, a private system of justice, which is what injunctions do.
What I want to get into as well is, and the topic we're talking about is the current laws. They have changed recently, and we're seeing a reaction to that, Anea. You know, where is the line in the other sense then? And what was interesting is, particularly in some of the cases we've had a man who's been jailed for 6 months for a 30-minute slow march. You know, we've got people who are in the system at the minute with severe bail conditions. Is it proportional, or would you like to see tougher laws?
Well, just 2 points. On the point about fossil fuel industries and so on and so forth, the truth is that there is political consensus in Labour and the Conservatives and all the other parties to move away from fossil fuels. We have to do it in a way that is sustainable to our energy needs and in a way that doesn't burden financially ordinary members of the public. And the truth is, actually, a lot of the Green protests have prevented action on climate change. For example, the Green Party, the Green Party have blocked nuclear development for years, and there's been many policies that could have reduced our dependency on fossil fuels that were not pure enough, but on the for a lot of the green activists. But on your point specifically about particular laws that are being passed, the truth is that if you want to protest, then you should be able to risk, take the risk of legal or criminal action. That shows that you kind of really believe in it. Why should you just have the floor?
You're kind of saying that you should go ahead and cause this disruption.
What I'm saying is that you can't expect that society just opens up the floor to you to do whatever you want.
No, and we don't expect them to, which is why when we go out and do things, we take accountability, we use our real names, we go to court, we face the charges, we do all of that. The point about civil injunctions, about these private laws, basically, if you've got big, deep pockets, you can pay for a law which makes it impossible for people to protest against your business practice.
Yeah.
This has been going on for a long time, but the scale of them has shot up. Sarah Ben, a GP,
Claire,
has been struck off.
Huge conversation.
Because she sat on a verge holding a cardboard sign outside.
It's a huge conversation, Claire, and I'm sure we will touch on this again. So please come back. Anea, Claire, thank you so much for your time this morning. Fascinating to hear from you both.